Hey, friends, we are fearless. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Frances Young, and I have Kara Stewart Agassi. No, I just fucked it up already. I'm sorry. Kara, you get to let's hear all five names.
I am Kara Adria Marie Stewart Agostino.
We have Kara here today. Welcome, Kara. I am very excited to see where this conversation goes, to tell the community who listens to this Fearless Life podcast who Kara is, her awesome, badass energy. And I've only known her for a month and a half, but this is how it goes where I'm like, I meet somebody, I want to get to know you, and let's collaborate, work together. Kara, you're going to take it away. You're going to tell us who you are, what you do, and about your business.
Okay, I am a 44-year-old personal trainer. I'm a mom of two amazing kids, two teenagers right now. I think it's important that I say amazing because sometimes being a mom of teenagers can be also challenging, but they are amazing people. I am a wife to a amazing chef, fabulous chef here in Toronto. I like to think of myself as a really great friend to a lot of people. And I own KSA Personal Training, which is a small, I guess we could say boutique fitness studio in the Junction, small studio in the Junction. Our clientele is incredibly diverse. I like to think of KSA as a fitness community that serves people from all walks of life, whether they are 10 years old or 75 years old, from a variety of backgrounds, people who are complete beginners, people who are advanced. And the thing that draws us all together at KSA is a love for movement and a love for exploring strength and really just that sense of always building community through those facets of joyful movement.
Amazing. And just listening to hear you saying all the things that I'm like, I can't wait to be 44 when I have all of these other things that will eventually be added to my life and be still in health and fitness. And Kara's awesome. This is what was going through my head as I'm listening to you. And
Thanks,
I,
Francis.
you're welcome. How long has the physical location of where you are now of KSA been open? I know it hasn't been that long, even though you've had KSA for a while.
This current location is coming up on 2 years. The May long weekend, actually, which is right around the corner from us, will be the 2 year anniversary of this location.
Oh my God, that I'm totally going to release this episode. Fast forward, it's the May long weekend. Woo! And the celebration of KSA 2 year in that location. Amazing. But you also,
Yeah.
did you train clients out of your garage or did you have another location?
Oh my goodness. It's such a long journey that we've had as a KSA community. So before this location, I had a small studio basically on the opposite side of the street, still on Dundas, still in the Junction. It was a little 700 square foot sublease that I took on right in the middle of COVID pandemic lockdowns. It was like 2021, the end of 2021. I just wanted to test the theory of can this work for me to have a physical location in this very turbulent kind of financial climate. And it went well. So we ended up in a bigger location. We needed more space. But before that, I started off in parks, renting dance studios, training clients in their houses, training clients in condo gyms, wherever I could be. Eventually, I converted we're serving a 2.5 story. So the half floor at the top, that little attic, we converted that into a studio, a gym. And I was running classes and training clients up there. Also, somewhere in there, I decided that I wanted to start. I wasn't getting in enough of my own workout time, and I wanted on Sunday mornings to get in just a quick little workout. And I had tons of equipment because I was still going back and forth between training in my house and training at studios because I had 6 a.m. classes and I didn't want people walking through my house at 6 a.m. and I was still going to people's houses. I had equipment in my attic, and then I had equipment in my garage. So I thought, you know what, let me just open up my garage. We back into a pretty wide laneway. I'm like, let me just start, do my own little workout back there, grab some of the equipment I have in the garage and go. And one of my friends and clients lives directly on the other side of that laneway. And he's, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. I want to join him. That turned into me starting something that we called Back Alley Fitness. And on Sunday mornings, I would just open up my garage door, pull out a whack of equipment, and whoever was going to show up would show up. It was totally drop in, pay what you can. And we would get, so our laneway is an H shape. And it was so fun that you would start just seeing people come from all parts of this H. My neighbor would open up his garage and he and his whole family would pile out. And we could have anywhere from 5 people to 25 people who would show up. We would have little kids, 5 and 6 years old. We would have adults, whole families. And I had a craft table for the kids if they didn't feel like working out. And then we would work for 30 minutes. My kids would often jump in and take everyone for a run around the block and then come back. And at the end of the 30 minutes, my husband would bring out coffee and everyone would, and we'd sit around, we'd drink coffee and chat.
The best Sunday
So
morning
back,
ever.
it was the best. It was really an amazing start to Sunday. When COVID hit and we couldn't work out together anymore, I was doing online stuff, obviously. But when they said that we could do outdoor stuff, I was like, okay, we could use the laneway. We've already been using it. It gives us lots of space. So I bought those like big like horse stall mats, like the 4x6, like thick rubber stuff, and we would pull them out so everyone would have their own section, and we were the 6 feet apart that we had to be, and that was your like spot.
Roll my eyes at the fucking 6 feet apart shit. Oh no.
And we did that for as long as we were able to. And I guess that was through the summer of 2021 into the fall. And then I started to think, what am I going to do? Because this whole online thing is not my love. It's not my strength. My strength is in person stuff. And I started looking at locations, and that's when I found this little 700 square foot thing,
Yep.
little spot.
Yep.
And then yeah, I did that studio for a year and a half, and then at the current location. So
Amazing.
it's been a trip. It's
It's
been
been a
a trip.
trip. And I love, and I think this is from also a fellow just health and fitness career person. Let's just call it that as a whole. How we
Yeah.
navigate our life of when's the condo client? When's the this? Do we open a location? Every trainer understands what that feels like, or any just health practitioner. If you're a massage therapist, you're trying to find it. We all get it. We're all like, how long do
Hmm.
I work here? Where's that client coming from? If I'm
That's
creating
right.
a community, how do I keep going with this community? I love
Yeah.
to know that you're also just been, I don't want to use the words fighting and trudging, but finding the ways in which the greater,
Figuring it out,
yeah,
pivoting. I think my career in fitness has taken a lot of directions that I wouldn't have expected it to take. I do a lot of work in youth fitness now, and it's become a real passion of mine. That if you would ask me right at the beginning of my career, I would have said that I didn't think I would ever do that. I didn't think that I would be good at working with teenagers. I couldn't imagine it. It was just a matter of following a thread that kept on happening. That was like, oh, and now I'm here and I love this thing actually. And I feel really strongly about how important this is and how much it means and how much it's brought to my coaching in my life.
amazing. I'm going to store that nugget of thread and we're going to save that for later when we get to some human design stuff. But it is
Of
a
course.
perfect moment to now to go back to the beginning of your career. When I first
Mhm.
spoke to you about coming on my podcast, you were like, yeah, I went to school for anthropology. And I was like, what? You're, huh? That's different. Wow, tell me more. So, one thing that we now get to go down the rabbit hole is I had a
Yeah.
question for you today to tell listeners of when was the moment that you realized, oh, I'm actually going to try this fitness thing as opposed to your life as an academic?
Yeah. I guess there were a couple of things that got me there that sort of transitioned me from academia to fitness. Fitness has always had a role. It's always been there in the background for me in some capacity. My mom was she was a real gym rat. She really loved exercise and fitness and used it not just from an aesthetic standpoint, but as a mental health standpoint, as a teacher, especially in as a special education teacher. It was important. Exercise was important to her. So I always worked out as well. And it was always like there as something that part of our family, something that we did. But I'll skip over some of the bits that got me here because it's such a long story and we only have so much time. But I wasn't quite sure where I was going to work and where I was going in life. And I had two young kids, and like my daughter was just a couple months old. My son was about 3. And I had been working at a bookstore for a long time and trying to finish my master's thesis but feeling like I was floundering,
Mhm.
not really sure what the direction was, what I wanted to do. None of it felt right. And I had been doing this postnatal fitness class for years from the time my son was born. So I had been doing it for about 3 years. And I became friends with the owner, and she was expanding and she offered me a job. She said, I need people, and you like this thing more than the average person. So if you want to become a personal trainer, I'll mentor you. So I was like, okay, let me think about that. As I don't know if I'm being drawn to this, and I don't want to say yes. And then I realize that I'm only saying yes to please someone else. I got to make sure this is for me. And I was at the gym. I was on like treadmill or the bike or something, one of those like cardio machines. It's like the time of my life where I was like, always thought a strength training workout had to start with 20 minutes on a bike or a treadmill.
Oh, yeah.
This is what we do.
Yeah. We have to start here and it's going to take this long. And then we have to do this warm up and then we have to foam roll. Yeah. Anyways.
That's right. That's right. I don't even think foam rollers were that big a deal yet. They weren't even a thing. You had to start with cardio. I'm doing this cardio and I'm not loving it, and feels like a chore in a way. And I realized to get myself through this feeling of chore, I'm picturing myself leading a class and inspiring or talking, motivating the people in that class through this 20 minutes of cardio, which is also in turn motivating me. I was like, there's something here. There's something here.
There's a little
If
light
this is
bulb.
what you're picturing,
Yeah.
this is a light bulb. It was a light bulb moment. Maybe I should actually take this from my brain into a real life thing with humans.
Yeah, that if I am physically picturing myself as I'm physically active doing this thing and it's giving me energy. That's how like I interpreted you saying that for the first time. I was like, oh, she felt
Yes.
realized she was like, yeah, okay. Then we may as well try because why not?
Why not? Why not? Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
That was my like light bulb moment. And being a student, being a researcher, I think I just applied so much of that energy then into learning about exercise physiology, coaching, science. Just I just delved right in and I fell in love with it.
And I'm sure from how you'd studied for so many years in such a different area of your life and then got into a textbook that describes the human body, I bet you ate that up even faster than the things that you were initially studying earlier on in your life.
Yeah, actually, I think the thread for me that connects anthropology and what I do now in fitness is people. And I think one of the most important things that we do as coaches is listen. If a strong coach has to be able to listen to their clients. And something that we learn in a big part of anthropology and field research is listening to people, is getting out into the field and asking questions and then listening and you spend lots of time just immersed in whatever that field is. That field might be, for me, what it was is I was interested in the experiences of non-white women in healthcare industries in Canada. So how were women who were not white experiencing healthcare services in Canada? So immersing yourself in that and listening to stories and listening to experiences, and then taking all of that and drawing some meaning from it and being able to say, okay, here's my theory. Here's the stories that I've heard. Here's how that's here's what I understand about the world now, or at least about this facet of the world, in that case, healthcare industry. And that's so, to me, it applies so strongly to what I have to do in fitness as well, is really listening to my client, my class, being tapped in to the energies, to the flow of a class, what people are wanting for their goals, just how they're showing up in a day. The amount of times you learn just by looking at, as soon as someone comes in and you look at their face, you ask a couple questions, you hear the energy, you hear stuff come out, that often will guide what I then need to do in a session.
100%. This moment,
Yeah.
will vibe on this because of also having felt that for so many years. And I remember in my first personal training job, I would stress over needing to have all of my programming done for the day so that I have a plan. I know where I'm going to go and everything's going to be awesome. I'm going to make sure my client gets their full workout done. It's going to be great. Because my initial integration into fitness came from the CrossFit world,
Right.
back when CrossFit wasn't cool and nobody really knew what it was yet, which is bonkers to think, right? About this
Here's to think about
phenomenon.
now.
Yeah. And because everything was pre-programmed, that was literally the only reason why I did that. I was like, everything's pre-programmed for the day. We got the workout of the day. Let's go. Everybody goes through it.
Oh,
And then you have a client come in and X has happened, or they're injured that day,
yeah.
or XYZ, insert. And you just learn how to better interpret what's going on. And you always have a better session. We can pre
Mm,
plan to an extent. Yes, Kara and I know
of
this.
course.
Everyone knows this. However, we still have to be in the moment on the given day for how our energy shows up. And it's so important.
One of the best early training experiences or clients I had really was my first handful of clients. She was the wife of someone I had lived in residence with when I was in university. And she, at the time, was in her early 30s, but had been diagnosed with fibromyalgia when she was 17, had PCOS, had gone through a couple challenging pregnancies, and at that time of her life, the fibro was really showing up, and she could be in real flare mode. And when I started working with her, we had some really great sessions. I taught her how to deadlift. It really changed how she was able to pick up her kids and just gave her a different quality of life that she didn't have before. But there were times, because I would go to her house, I'd show up, and I could see in her eyes, I can picture it now, that her eyes would be so heavy and you could just see the pain that she was in that day. There's so much we learn from working with clients with chronic pain, that those of us who don't experience it and don't live with that really need to learn. And it's so important to listen to them and just believe them and trust them and be ready to pivot, that your plan is meaningless some days. And so some days we would go for a walk. Some days we'd go for a walk. And that would be the work of getting her out of her house and into some fresh air. And going for a walk was more meaningful than whatever shoulder presses and deadlifts and dead bugs I had planned for that day.
100%. I have also done that with clients. And that's sometimes also just what you need from your friend that you didn't see that day. Your trainer's there. Hey, we're just going to do this. And this is how we show
Yeah.
up today.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're still delving into some other fun topics of also where I enter the story. Because again, Kara, I've
Love
only known you for a month and a half ish.
it. Like Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And what I do to remind people is that I'm a personal trainer and I'm also a stretch therapist as my main services that I've been working on in my career for the past just over 10 years. Been doing stretch therapy for about 7 now. And
Wow.
so in the junction, I happen to also work at another gym, literally 50 meters away from KSA. And so one day I'm walking by, I'm like, the biggest thing in health and fitness when you're a practitioner of any kind, you always know there are clients everywhere. Anyone is a potential client. And when,
Absolutely.
yeah, clients feel slow for whatever reason, whoever
Mhm.
you speak to, you're like, okay, I got to meet another trainer. I got to look at another space. Like, and I've been walking by KSA just as long as Connect Fitness, where I currently have been working for just over a year and a bit. And I'm like, this building is pink. Like, it's got to be awesome inside. These are thoughts I've had walking past your gym, Kara. And so one day I'm like, sure, let's go walk in. Let's see if it's open because from the outside, sometimes you can't tell just
Yeah.
due to, where the
Because
stature
it's set back from the road, the lighting's a little bit weird. Yeah.
exactly. Like it's just back from the sidewalks. You can't quite tell all the
Yeah.
time. So I'm like,
Yeah.
let's check. And the only person in the gym when I open the door, it is Kara. And she workout. And I realized to myself now, I was having self-reflection actually with a client earlier, thinking to myself, because I've been in the position where I've been a gym owner. And when you're
Yeah.
doing your own workout and you're the only person in there, and then someone walks in and there's a little piece inside of you, and I would love to know just how honest this moment is for you. Is there's a little piece inside because I've been there where you're like, ugh, I got to stop my set.
What
But
now? It's a little bit of what now? Well, and it's also a little bit of like, how long is this going to potentially interrupt my workout?
yes, and I because I've
Right?
been
Is
there,
this
I
going to
know
be
better.
like a 2 minute rest period between sets, or is this going to be 5 minutes and I'm going to have to like warm back up?
Am I gonna have to tell her all of the promotions in the studio right now? Who's walking in my door?
Yeah.
I thought to myself, I was like, I wonder if this went through Kara's head because me walking in the door pre to just seeing you, I was like, I bet you I'm going to disrupt somebody. And I don't know if I want to do that. That's sometimes actually why I don't walk in places because I'm worried I'll interrupt somebody. My
Right.
conscientious self. Anyway, so I walk in. When Kara was like, yep, finished doing my workout right now, I was like, oh my God, I don't want to interrupt her. Gave her my card and was like, let's schedule a trial stretch and let's
Yeah.
get back to each other. And so, also with being a business owner, I was like, I bet you Kara won't get back to me. So then I harassed you and emailed you, being like, let's schedule it in. So, fast forward, I then gave Kara a 30-minute trial stretch because something that I learned with being a stretch therapist or just doing any of my services is if the vibe fits, they'll get
Mhm.
back to you and do something for free or in exchange or just show them who you are. And so I gave Kara a little stretch. She felt my hands, and then she's like, yeah, let's open up shop, have some trials, and have some stretch therapy go on in KSA. And
Yeah.
here we are a month and a half later.
I'll tell you to add into the other side of the story that you don't know is after you'd come in and between you emailing me,
Yeah.
I had a massage with my therapist who's been a friend and therapist for 7, 8 years. And met her, like our boys are the same age. They played baseball together. She has massaged me on bleachers at their games, and obviously I was on her table in between our two conversations. And I really trust her and value her opinion on things. And she's been an RMT for 25 years. Anyway, I was like, what do you think of fascial stretch therapy? And so we had this whole like conversation about it before you emailed me and about the potential value that it could add to clients and to the studio, as long as it was someone who had experience and wasn't, oh, I just did this 1 day course thing.
My reaction into the mic is just,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. And when there are FST places popping up. And she and I had a conversation more about the business model, some of those places, and concerns around that. And we both, by the end of the conversation, landed on this could be a really good value add to the community at KSA that doesn't get into that icky territory of the more corporate model that we're seeing come up
Yep.
that we don't love.
And I have,
And then he emailed me like I think that same day. And I
oh,
was like, okay, let's go.
I knew the universe sent me the energetic vibes of just recontact Kara. So, like for myself, I've been in and out of deepening my stretch practice since I became a fascial stretch therapist back in
Uh-huh.
2019 for me. And more recently, I remember to just have a moment of when a franchise, a stretch franchise from the States was brought to Canada. And I
Mhm.
watched it and was like, oh no, this is going to ruin stretching. CrossFit ruined the fitness industry. CrossFit, you're great. You took it in a direction like F45. And then
You've done some really good things. You've done
right,
some good work.
been awesome. You brought functional fitness back into the limelight of an adult's life.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
the world will never be the same for that. That's amazing.
And opened up women to lifting heavier weights than what some other women's focused fitness models did not do.
Amen to that. I wouldn't live without it. So like amazing. But the way in which to monetize and create stretching a corporate model, I was like, no, it's gonna ruin like how it feels when you get stretched, because getting stretched is not a rinse and repeat moment. Very much
No.
massage, very much like any type of physical, energetic work to heal tissue in some way. That's how I see stretch therapy as.
Mhm.
And yeah, I was not about the corporate model. So I left the corporate model. I dipped my toe in and out, learned some new
Yeah.
things. And then here I am being like, let's add to also the way I like to work a community that I know would benefit, but if it's the right fit for me, if it's a place where the energy is
Yeah.
also reciprocating in the correct way. So KSA just happened to be another moment where that worked out. So here we are. And then,
I
so
remember being on the table with you and
yeah,
feeling like the conversation was just really easy and flowed really easily between us. And that was good vibes.
yeah. Now we get to vibe into. I was hoping it was going to go this way with all of the questions that I pre-sent Kara. There are things that I've been like trying to hold back on parts of my academia nerdiness is that Kara will slowly get to know this piece of me. And this is going to be great because here's the first live moment is that I am a studying astrologer and I am a human design expert. And these two things go hand in hand. And because they're two systems that are actually very similar, even though they describe different parts of us. And I know that
Mhm.
Kara is a Virgo sun, and I have Virgo tendencies because I like things to be in an order and to understand. So I pre-sent Kara a list of what we were going to talk
Yeah.
about. Vibing of any, if
Right.
any
That's right.
listening knows some Virgo stereotypes, were very type A in certain ways, which is
Very
a good
true.
thing. It's a great thing about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Doesn't have to be a bad thing.
But to get to the energy side of the conversation flowed, it felt great. Even me, while I was treating Kara for the first time, I'm like, yep, I gotta learn from this woman. She knows her shit. Like he's just gotta something's gonna happen. And then I brought up to Kara to fast forward. Hey, Kara, you want to be on my podcast? Because I think this would be great. I'm going to teach you about human design. Can I teach your community about human design and this other thing that I do? So another reason why Kara and I were vibing, maybe we'll start there, is Kara and I happen to be the same energy type or the same kind of vibe in our body is the same, and we were picking up on it.
Yeah.
So, human design is a system that describes the energy in our body, how it flows, and how, for some reason, these threads of our life now I'm going to make all the correlations there. The
Mhm.
threads of our life somehow put us in a certain direction. I'm just a person having a human experience being a human on earth. And so Kara and I are both generators. Now, to just vibe on what a generator is, that generators, when they're happy and doing things that they like, they
Mhm.
draw people to them, they draw circumstances to them that are going to add to their life in some way. So, why I was drawn to Kara's studio is one, it's pink. So, I think, and two, we pick up on energy wherever we go. In a
Mm.
car, in traffic, where everybody hates traffic, like the energy of, oh my God, we're in traffic, it's happening.
Yeah.
Or when you walk into the mall and you don't really, you're bombarded by a bunch of shit. You're like, whoa, because there's a lot of energy going on in the mall and a lot of people giving off a lot of energy. But when you're one on one with somebody, you can pick up on, I like this person, or I like this moment, but it's only for this moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm excited to say live that I know everybody, including Kara, is going to vibe with is that, Kara, your community is solid.
Oh.
It's solid. And I'm new to it, but every person I talk to, all of the coaches, everyone that I've treated, and that's the generator beautifulness of you, Kara, drawing the most awesome people into your space because you are an awesome generator slash just awesome person.
Oh, I love my fitness community. I'm so happy to hear. These are such nice things to hear. Thank you, Francis.
You're welcome. And it's the vibe of that generators don't have to work hard to create the things and these threads that just feel correct and feel like fulfilling to their body and energy because you love
Mhm.
working out so much and how it's led you through these different paths. Of course, you're going to have a great rocking community. And that how one thing I can't wait to describe parts of your human design graph that actually talk about Kara is that this thread of listening, I know
Mm,
that your graph is going to tell me where and how you listen to people
mm,
because our human design, with all of the kind of like nerdiness to it, there's a graph that's involved. And me being a reader slash expert, I interpret that and I can see, oh, yeah, this person's really good at this. It's going to tell me things about Kara that she's a listener and that she needs to move her body every day. This is what her digestion is like. These are the type of environments where she succeeds.
wow. Oh my gosh.
No, it says all of those things. So we'll get to that in about maybe 5 minutes. But my
Okay.
first moment of saying this thing to you, I remember, and then you went into talking about your academia.
Mm,
Asked me a question that no one had asked me yet that I wanted us to go down a rabbit
mhm.
hole. And it was speaking with regards to gender, race,
Yeah.
everything that you had studied in your academics prior, as to how do those potentials of just energetic blocking or something that society sees as a way in which you are not as privileged as someone else to succeed in air quotes. Let's just say air quotes for what we perceive as success, as to how different ways, if that could impede our energies success, like us as just this human design generator, how it could impede us. And before I go any further, like me describing some things just about like generator drawing goodness to you, is there anything going through your brain right now that you're like,
Oh,
mm,
absolutely. Absolutely. I very much want to acknowledge that when I started KSA, I I am married. I was married at the time. I was already married to someone who had a successful business, which gave some financial freedom to be able to start personal training and some, I'm going to even say just like a security blanket
yeah,
to be able to start the business. We had a house that I could leverage and make use of, to a house that we own, to start the studio, and an enormous amount of support from my parents to also be able to help with my young kids. They were very young at the time when I was starting KSA. And all of those factors enabled me to be able to It's not just to put all of the time and effort and love into KSA that's allowed it to grow to where it is now. And I do wonder, even something like geographical location is something. Being in a neighborhood that is relatively affluent, where people are able to put some of their budget, their monthly dollars into self-care and into fitness as self-care. How would that be changed if I were in a different neighborhood in the city that didn't have that same kind of affluence? Would the road have been different? Would it have been harder? And so all of those things helped me. And then I think about then there are the reality of being a Black woman in this industry. I also need to acknowledge that can at times, and for some more than others, be an impediment to how we are recognized and respected in this industry. And so I do wonder about how these factors of race, class, gender, geographical location, age, all of these things, education, I had the educational background, all of these factors can play a role in your ability to follow your human design.
Yeah. And I think I'm going to go with, I'm going to say one thing first and then we're going to go in another direction. But the thing that I like to say, because when I first learned what my human design was, my first reaction was, oh my God, I need to redo how I do my entire life because I haven't been successful up to this point until I learned this thing. Like my brain went into, I need to
Okay.
journal about this. I need to deconstruct my life because of being in health and fitness and for what I had started to go down rabbit holes of how I think I should be successful. And I got to know the step by step plan in order to be successful. Once I knew this new information, I was like, how does this integrate? Have I been doing it all wrong before because I haven't thought that I've been successful yet? Like where my brain was going, actually, no, you've been living your design correctly. If we weren't living our design correctly, it's funny to say it like this bluntly, we'd be dead. Our body would physically die, which sounds funny to laugh. I'm like, but no, that's true because our when we take our
Mhm.
first breath, our design when we're born is then technically it's given to us in that moment. So
Mm.
all of these facets of our life, including our skin color, our race, how we evolve, and if our identity changes, if we want to change it. So, what our design is trying to show us and allow us to live at that time of our life and our understanding. And
Okay.
I think that, so for me, to resonate with the fact that if you'd asked yourself, if someone had asked you at the beginning of your fitness career, would you be coaching teens to at the
Mm.
end, or not end, sorry, you are currently in your coaching
Mm.
career as just the facet of personal trainer that you love also training teens. If you'd asked me at the beginning of my fitness career, if at by X I'd own a gym, then be out of it, then be in human design, and then no. What are you crazy? Huh? And my background is in dance. So I went to university and I've got a degree for contemporary dance. Like it's movement, but it's nowhere near
Mhm.
being a barbell. I lift humans, not bar. I think that our design really and our understanding, our self understanding, our understanding of our own energy, because we can even use those words, understanding our own energy as we get older and evolve and we meet new people, we meet a partner, and all of these things get given to us by our experience of life. That the more that we're authentic to what our energy is saying, society will still give us these the way that our exterior world has this mirage of what is supposed to be correct and
These
supposed
expectation, yeah, these
to
stereotypes and assumptions.
exactly that if we're being authentically us for what it says inside of whatever our gender is, our color, all of these beautiful things about humans, that's when we get the people that break the status quo over the course of our lifetime, as what we see through history as to who on what gender, what race, what identity breaks the status, changes the fact that still, thank goodness, and depending on where we are in the world right now, that gay marriage is legal. That now, depending on, and I'm not even going to go political right now, but that got changed at what point that was able to be a thing because
Mm,
somebody was authentic enough to make it happen
yeah.
because they felt.
I want to share with a little something with you that so I'm a big reader. Like nonfiction, fiction. I'm always reading something, which is why we have a little library in the gym, a little shared library. So someone had brought in a novel by African American author Ta-Nehisi Coates called The Water Dancer. And it takes place during slavery. And there's a point in the novel, which in some ways felt like a bridge between fiction and nonfiction, where the main character talks about all of these strengths that the enslaved had, whether they were inventors, creators, all of these abilities that were quashed and unable to be achieved because they were living in a time of enslavement. And I think about that a lot. I think about where could our society be if that had never happened? If some of those folks who maybe could have invented something that technologically led us forward in some way, or mathematically, physiologically, like they were all of these thousands upon thousands of people who had all kinds of creative and scientific, just so much potential that was quashed, right? And was not allowed to be explored. How much our society has not been allowed to benefit from that. There's a word I'm looking for that I'm not finding right now. But I think about that. And I also think to bring it back to human design, and you're talking about the folks, how living the potential allows for a breaking of status quo. I wonder about the heroes of there's so many, all of them are heroes of that time, but the folks that we know of as leaders to get out of enslavement, the names that we know, the Harriet Tubmans and various, the Paul Robesons, like what was there? What was the thing that guided them, that pushed them? What was their human design, perhaps, that they were living to a certain potential that allowed them to help break society of this and save lives, save people, but also shift a narrative of the world that existed at that time.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful thought. And it honestly, to me, I'm like, there would have been these. I'm like, I'm always the person that has to have, I know I can explain it like that. Is that how, whenever we see that something like changes or bursts, or where even in our,
Mhm.
we think about our own lives as to where that was that light bulb moment when you're on the treadmill and you're like,
Yeah.
this direction I'm going to go. And it brings me XYZ of fulfillment, success, the ability to live, like all of these things that we're trying to do essentially human to live, is that it was probably those random moments where they were alone, or maybe they weren't, where they're like, this is where I'm going to go next, or I'm going to walk into this store and say this thing that spawns somebody else to remind this thing that you were with your massage therapist. And then you ask about FSC.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
the way that the world and timelines of people's lives shift in and out of each other is that's I love talking about that shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
I currently on my phone as I sit in here
Okay.
with you, Kara, have your human design information on my phone. One thing that as a health and fitness professional that I want to see if you vibe with this question right away. When somebody asks you the question, what do you eat? How do you keep fit and healthy for yourself? As is this very broad question. Have you ever felt that you haven't been able to answer that question as specifically as you'd like for that person? Or do you feel like you always have a specific answer for that particular person?
I'm going to say that I don't always feel as though I have exactly the right answer. And I think as I'm not a nutritionist, I try and respect my scope of practice. And providing meal plans is not something that I am going to suggest to people. But when people ask me, I lean into talking about how much importance I place on making sure my meals have not just a starting point of protein, but also of vegetables. I feel like that's very important. I'm always leaning on veggies. I don't think people eat enough vegetables and fruits and hydration. And that carbs are your friends and not to be afraid of carbs. And then we can get into a little bit more specifics, but though that's sort of my sort of feeling that I don't feel super comfortable saying, here's exactly how I think you should eat on any given day. Does that make sense?
100%. I ask that question because I answer in the same way that you do. The majority of my careers, and even now, even with this human design stuff, I will still say those rough answers to people because it is so specific to the person. One, two, I'm also not a registered nutritionist or dietitian with regards to, but just the specifics to somebody's system. Now that I have, so this is the one that I'm nerdy about, that I will go specific to what it says about specific or digestion next in this moment, Kara, to just have some fun with it. But
Okay.
because we know as just being in health and fitness, let alone the type of awareness that certain individuals have about their health these days, their food and their digestive system could be somewhat dysregulated due to their commute, due to something that isn't even food related. That there's just so many inputs to get one particular output that for something, when somebody goes, hey, can you tell me what you do for this? I'm like, I can give you some ideas
Yeah.
and I'll give you some Google points. And then let's take it from there. And I'll give you some ballpark of X and veggies and hydration. And then that's usually all somebody needs to start to get on a path that's healthier for them, say, with just regards to what they eat. But I always felt insecure actually giving those types of answers because these people, one, they invest money in you. Two, you're like, trainers become like a therapist. It's a close and intimate environment.
Absolutely.
Oh, two things about your digestion, Kara, that
Let's see it.
says in your human design graph is there's two parts. So the first part
Okay.
is that someone can either have what's called in human design terms, either an active or a
Okay.
passive digestion. And so
Mm.
one resonates for you, Kara, and that yours is active.
Okay.
What that means is that it technically does mean that your system, not necessarily metabolism, but your system and just energy as a whole, is burning a lot in a day.
Yeah.
Requires more fuel potentially than someone who is a passive digestion. I have passive digestion. And it's just, it needs more consistent timing of food.
Yes.
So, regardless of this is how I like to word it to people with active digestion in their design, is that you could be a person that really resonates with I have breakfast at 7, I have lunch at noon, I have dinner at 5. That's your active consistency. But sometimes it's a consistency of I am somebody that intermittent fasts. And that's the way that it's consistent for that person, but they're getting
Right,
it
right.
food at that time of day. Now I know already by like you nodding and being like, yep, I like need a lot of food. It's got to be particular. For somebody that's always felt like you've been on a regime of I need this much food in a day.
And I've played around with remember when like doing fasting like was a real thing, not intermittent fasting, just like the cayenne and lemon juice and the water thing. I don't think I lasted a day before I was like, this is not gonna be for me. And I do best, my best days energetically is when I have planned my food when I leave the house for the day. And I have not big meals, but smaller meals and snacks that get me through the day. That's when I do best. If I don't do that planning, and I can go, generally, I don't eat before I go to work. And then I teach a lot in the mornings. I like to have a little something I can snack on in between my little 15-minute breaks. A little something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how I
So
do best.
just these like little bits that are still getting you through
Yeah,
the love that.
that's right.
Now, one thing that I think is super cool that I'm like, this is interesting is that then there's like another nuance to
Okay.
digestion. And to say mine out loud, I have what's called closed taste digestion in the human design system, to throw out some cool wording. And
Okay.
what it means for me is I eat very seasonally, so that in
Mhm.
the summer, I'm having all the fruits and veggies that are grown at that time and they taste so fresh. And wherever I go, I'm having the freshness of where I go.
Yep.
And it's a primitive or an older style of digestion. If you give me a really complex, really type of meal that, yes, maybe there's a lot of fat in it, but just something that's complexly made, my system may
Mhm.
not like it because there's just too much going on in it. Like my
Right.
mind's pretty bare with very simple, basic things going.
Simple ingredient.
Yeah. Yeah. So if food gets too complicated, my system is, whoa, overload. And yours is, interestingly enough, it says cold. Now, that means is that your system itself, like the energy in you, is warm. So your
Okay.
system doesn't mind if it has, yes, cold food or
But not cold pizza.
no. And it doesn't, you can't have spicy food as a thing, like if you like spicy food, but it
Mhm.
does okay. So, say if you're having leftovers and you don't have a microwave, like your system's, yeah, it's fine if it's cold or if it's just room temperature. Right now, I've also pulled up some just like writing about what it means to have this style of digestion. So, I'm going to read it and see how you resonate.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what it says, your foods, try to consume whatever cooling things appeal to you. So, juices,
Ooh,
cucumber slices, celery sticks, smoothie bowls, lemon water. Just
love all of that. Yep.
it's just throwing things out there. If you're eating something like roast chicken, let it cool a bit before eating it. You might even find you naturally prefer food when it's leftovers because your body knows instinctively that it responds better at that temperature. That's why I brought up leftovers.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That one with people. If you want something cooked, that's fine. Pair it with salad or a cooling drink. It's just like other
Well, yeah, absolutely.
around this idea of cold food.
Yeah.
If you get too heated, is putting it, it says in air quotes, that usually will throw your digestion off. So if you emotionally feel heated up, does your digestion
Yeah.
be like, what the fuck's happening?
Oh, I don't know. I'm gonna watch that now.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. That could be literally heated if you are too in a warm environment or just or just worked out intensely. Try opening the windows or taking a cool shower before eating a meal.
Oh my goodness. So I just this morning had a very intense workout with my trainer. I just started working with him a couple weeks ago. And he he did not beat me up. He really kicked my butt though. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need food. I need food. I'm so hungry. And I had ordered sandwiches for my son and I to have for lunch. So by the time I got home, they were a bit colder. But then the thought of picking up the sandwich and actually biting into it was too much. So I was just like peeling out the meat, which was colder. It was cold, and eating it like slowly. It was no longer warm. It's just like little bits at a time. That's all we can take right now.
No, see, this is the weird thing about human design is it will describe this random instance as to why you wanted to have the meat out of your sandwich. Because for some reason, with your system being hot from your workout, it was just like, not this way.
Yeah, not this way. I eventually got to the bread, but it had to be torn apart in little pieces too.
Oh, it's so cool. Okay, another couple little things about it. It says too, this also applies to being too heated mentally or emotionally. If you're feeling too passionate or mad about something, it's not the time to eat. Kind of like referring back to this moment of, oh my God, after my workout, I just still, my system needs a minute before.
Ah, yeah, that makes sense to me.
Ah,
I definitely have felt that in moments of if I get very emotionally worked up and it's just before a meal or something, I lose my appetite and I have to walk away and cool things down a bit.
have a moment. Similarly, if you're eating with others and it's becoming too heated or passionate, feel free to get involved, but call on those cold foods or drinks to help bring balance to that beautiful.
Oh,
So it's because of how it says there's this heat in your body and your system. It's trying to
mhm.
just get your system to also be as regulated and balanced as it can be with the food that you're inputting into it. I have one question because I love to vibe with a generator on this. And then I think we'll have a wrap up moment because we've done the
Yeah.
thing is so I laugh at this question for me because
Okay.
being a generator, just because of how much it resonates, but to all pretty much any person will laugh at this question because of their own just societal experience with it is that do you like being asked this particular question? And it could be like by anybody in your family, by your kids, by your husband.
Mhm.
It, do you like it when they ask just very blankly, do you know what we're having for dinner? And
Oh
or,
God, I hate that question.
and or,
Sorry, what was that? I missed that part.
what do you want to eat? And it's so open ended.
No, someone else needs to make that decision or give me options. Give me options. I don't want to choose.
No, no, no.
Just tell me.
I will tell
Or
you.
unless it's up to me to cook, then I'm gonna make the decision and I'm gonna do it. And like I've made that decision beforehand. I've looked through the Pinterest ideas. I've seen what I have in the fridge. I have an idea. We're going. But don't provide me with two to three options. But that open-ended, no, guys.
I think
Mama does not like that question.
I think this will solve all issues between all humans if we just asked specific yes, no questions. This is how generators operate. To anyone looking, we're going to give them in the show notes how you find out if you're a generator or not. And I'll send you your chart, Kara, so you know. The reason why we don't like open ended questions is because, Kara, you just described it. I need the options. I need to look at Pinterest. I need to be given decisions. Yes, no. If people kept asking us, do you want meat with your dinner? Do you want ground beef? If they kept asking specifics as opposed to what do you want to eat, we wouldn't feel this massive indecision of type of moment. Get frustration. Stop asking me that question. Like,
My brain cannot process that, all of those possibilities right now.
no. Yeah. The best thing that I always tell to people is, and I do this for myself now, I specifically get people to ask me if we're going out for dinner or I know I have an idea. I get specific right away. So have fun with telling your kids to be like, hey, mom, do you want to go get a sandwich as opposed to what do you want for lunch?
Yeah, I love it. Do it.
It feels easier for me to make decisions on food these days because I try to have fun with it in this way or think about I'm going to choose between X foods because it's point blank, it's yes or no. And that's how our systems like eat this easy.
Yeah,
Ah,
so funny.
it seems very simple, but yet,
Mhm.
usually the simple ways of deciding and connecting the threads of our life are actually much easier than pondering those big questions. Even the
Mm.
what do you want for dinner? Kara, thank you so much for being a guest. And I love that we got to hang out for so long. I got to hear more about you. You
Having me.
You're welcome. You got an insight on the crazy things I do and talk to about with my clients slash your clients.
Love it. I love it.
Is there anything else that you'd like to leave off on today?
No, just as I said, thank you so much for having me and giving me some insight into this world of human design that you've been exploring and opening up my mind to thinking about life and how we move through it and through a different viewpoint.
It was a pleasure to have you. And I know that your audience, your community is going to vibe on hearing about you. So I can't wait for them to listen to this. And who knows? I'm excited to see where another year from now, us being at the same studio in the same space, where KSA is going to be a year from now. Thank you, Kara. And always the thing that I like to remind everybody is that we are fearless.